Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I have something special for you. I recently recorded a track walkthrough with Lunatica. This is just something new that I want to experiment with, and maybe we'll see him back on the channel in the future as well. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the walkthrough. Welcome, how are you doing?
Hello, nice to be here together to share some Psy.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining me. Tell me a little bit
Pleasure.
about yourself.
So I'm Miguel, also known as Lunatica. I'm into music like since 24 years right now. I started in the year 2000. I spent 10 years with techno. I had a record shop, vinyl shop. I was selling CDs, vinyls, decks, equipment. In my city, I had a shop for 8 years long. I had even a record label, vinyl about techno. But that after those 10 years, I started to move to psychedelic sound. I discovered psychedelia, so I started to like that. And I started on a project Looping called Looping. I was 10 years doing progressive on with that project. And like 2010, I started Lunatica, 2012, something like that. And it's my main project right now where I'm fully focused. And yeah, besides that, I also do sound banks. I'm behind the Sergeant's Institute. I do education stuff since many years ago. Everything related to music mostly, you know? Yeah, sure.
Interesting, a little bit of everything. So Lunatica is a bit more full on. You said you're doing a little bit of progressive psytrance and then a little bit more Lunatica. So the Lunatica stuff, since I heard the two tracks that you sent me, is a little bit more full on, I guess.
It is, yeah, it is. It is Citrus full on, yeah, into that line.
Okay. So we're going to take a look at the project first, and then I'll ask you a couple of more questions after that.
This is my track I released a few weeks ago, like 2, 3 weeks ago. It's an EP, 2 tracks. This is the main track called Robot Carnival. Well, it's this background you have seen, is this cover. I do the covers also, by the way, with a 3D program. I'm now doing my artwork since 1, 2 years ago. I want to give a deeper dimension to the. So, yeah, this is the project. Whatever you want to see in more deeper detail, just tell me and I can open, bring whatever, show whatever, okay? But
Okay.
basically, I think we can go and make an overview since half of the intro, and I will play and stop here and there, and I will remark and speak.
Yes, we'll start with the intro, and then we'll just go through the project and say some interesting things, and then we'll see where we go from there.
That's it. Let's go. Okay, I will stop. I want to mention some things. So as you see, we start from here. We started from here. This element is taking the attention here in the intro, warming up. Right, so that kind of mood together, that pad, that element, melodic kind of plucky thing, all that together, I keep warming. So I start here, kick and bass, the entering of the track. And something I want to mention basic about my workflow, my concept. Look, I like a lot to work with less elements and channels possible. So if you know this here, for example, I have how much? Okay, look, first I have three sub masters, three subgroups I use, where I send everything of my tracks, kick and bass. I send it here in the first group. In the second group, I send all the groove, which would be from snare to crash, all that, to the drums, and then the rest, which from here to there, it's leads and stuff which happens in the midst of the spectrum. All that I send it to the leads. Then,
Okay.
then these channels left, I use them straight to the master. These are two for sub, so it has low end information. And then I have some rise noisers, basically rise element. So
Okay.
that's how basically I work. Then I like a lot, as I was saying, to have the less amount of tracks possible. And I like a lot, and I look a lot after achieving elements that have very strong connotations, aspects, behaviors. So I need the less amount of elements possible, and I speak the most possible with the less elements possible. That I like to do it a lot. And it's very basic for my concept of artistic creation about Psy. So if you know this, we have from here, it's 15 up to here would be 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 16 main elements, leads, pads, whatever, but 16 main. And then I have these three in all my tracks. It's usually two or three channels. Here I put a miscellaneous, various of everything supporting little glitch, little elements I put here or there, or not,
Mm-hmm.
short, but it can be long, whatever. But I put a miscellaneous of elements there. So I end up with, as you can see, I have 38 channels, which actually it's -4. It would be, this track is like 34 channels. So it's very low amount of channels, right?
Yeah.
Then I will now explain about the arrangement. We will go. But I wanted to clarify this since the beginning because if you take this point of view I have, if you take it from there, then you will see I will keep explaining, and everything keeps happening very simple about, I mean, not a lot of elements and a lot of tracks. I don't have here 50 or 100 or 150 tracks. No, not at all. I have few elements which I try to make them the most magic possible and strongest and more significant behaviors and flavors and everything, sensations that it can bring to the listener, right?
Does that mean for you that each track has only one sound on it, or is there maybe one track that has 3 or 4 distinct sounds throughout the track? Because I see different colors in different parts. Right, I
Good
see
question.
the hyper travel thing. There's one that is orange, one that is blue, one that is gray, one that is
Good
like
question.
a cyan.
Yes, good question. I just give the colors just my paranoia, my way. But I mean about your question, these, for example, you were saying these or whatever, they are all one element. Sometimes it can be that I make with two or three layering scenes one element. It can be, but usually this is just here mainly all the elements you see about leads that I said, which goes mainly all that. All those elements are one by itself. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We will go through now. We will see a bit of them, but yeah, basically it's like that. So I was saying we were here, started, we came through the intro, we arrived here, and we listened that blog. That blog is the first entering. I make some presentation, some income, starting to explain the story, the most interesting way possible, I consider in every track. After there, we go with some hats and we keep going. We keep going with the story, no, warming a little bit more, keeping that ascension slow, not yet something aggressive or hard. Then now we will get it from here. We will listen and we will jump first time here with more full grams. And first unleashing of the full groove will be here, 81. Let's take it from here.
Mm-hmm.
I keep warming this block, and then I will give a lot of importance to this jump. For me, this jump, the first unleashing of your full groove in every track, for me, is super important part, very crucial. Needs to be so the most perfect possible and the biggest impact giving to the listener, the biggest sensation, for me, it's important this
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing, achieving that. So here I keep warming from where I come, but I'm preparing a bit more nasty because I will start to unleash first full groove for first time, and also
Mm-hmm.
I will start a different articulation, conversation, vibe, mood with the elements. I will start to introduce more elements and more intensity and different speaking language than from 81 backwards. Now
So
it's will
before, it's sometimes the same elements, but they played like in different points within the 16 bars block, to say it like that.
kind of, yeah. Yeah, so we will take it now from here. As you see, we were coming from there. Now it's will become more nasty slowly, as I was saying. And here, especially, I'm preparing this kind of rising feeling with this vocal, which I come pitching from down to up. This vocal is the main element about vocal of the track that I created. Maybe I can tell you quickly that I sometimes I do it just to make the freak thing, but I go to ChatGPT, create some text for me about this concept track I have, whatever. Then I take the text, I go to, uh, I cannot open it now, but this program is a text to speech. I paste the text. It gives me, I have different VSTs with different voice types.
Mm-hmm.
I take the one I like. In this case, this one is what I took. I will put it, for example, here rapidly so you can listen.
Robot Carnival is an electrifying musical journey that transports listeners to a futuristic realm where technology and creativity collide.
Right? So it's that.
Like a very robotic kind of sound.
Well,
Yeah.
not so robotic. I mean, I will bring it robotic. Look, I will show you where I bring it. We will see later, but just quickly to compare, it's this.
Robot Carnival is an electrifying musical journey that transports listeners to a futuristic.
That is where I bring it in the end. The final thing I like to bring. This is the chain I use. Basically, the magic comes from the spectral resonator. Also, I have done here in the clip beats on 132 with this option. All together makes this kind of sound, synthesis texture. Good.
So this is also warped. You make it the vocal longer as well, right? To get the beats kind of chopping up the sound and get that kind of granular feeling to it.
Well, sorry, I forgot. This originally it's like that, 145. What I did is by two. Okay, once I have by two, I go beats, 132, and this option. And I have this kind of 132 chopping
Yeah, the stutter effect.
sample. And on top of that, I apply the chain, and all that together gives this kind of thing element in the end. So that we will see later. But yeah, I was saying with this element, I'm warming this part, and we will drop here first time more nasty and start different language, more intense and deep. Let's see. You see, I was not lying. I was not lying. From here, you can feel a different story already, different kind of language going on, you know? Very
I also
different.
like that you're flowing with the vocal, not just like up until the point where the fill happens, where you go from block to block, but it kind
I
of
keep it,
moves into the next part, and then
Yes.
it says like, here's the robot thing, and then all of the massive synths come in after that.
Yes, and
That's
then
really
all
cool.
together with the rhythmic of the new leads coming on. Yeah, very, very good point that you focused, that you noticed that, because it's true. Here is the vocal. We can take a look. That's interesting. You see, it's still taking that part after 81 where we drop. So it gives that kind of mood, yeah. Something I like to do a lot, and it's very characteristic of my sound print, is the contrast of the elements. I look a lot, I didn't mention before maybe, but when I do the brainstorm and I create my leads and that kind of elements, it's very important for me to have contrast. And I select the element selection that I have. I take it very into account this thing. So I can play later with contrasted elements and achieve this very intense and deep state into the listener, right? For example, from all the kind of stuff we have gone through that block, this jump is very significant that this element, it's very sweet and it has a contrast with all the rest of the background and story principal things that were happening.
Yeah, essentially everything is very aggressive, and then suddenly this flow comes in there, and it's this big, nicer, atmospheric kind of element.
You know, that is very sweet now, and I place it right in the jump from block to block, so it gives this very remarkable and significant feeling. Right? That was a jump. We have been now running through that block, which is now taking the attention with this new element. Right? And then I'm preparing this. As you can see, this is incoming slowly, very subtle, slow, and it will be full principal element here, taking full attention of the listener with a little bit of background, some other elements. I play again that sweet pad together with some other leads company, but this is gonna be the principal. And I'm incoming it slowly, being melted with all this background, all this block, and we will make that jump. Look, from here. I stop 1 second. So you see, that's the standing. That's the descending after we push. That's the highest peak of the highest peak of the track so far. That block, right? Then we jump, and I let sustained that element, principal element, to let it melt its tail with the new background, which we will be preparing to go to the break, and it's going also doing this kind of rhythm, kick and bass.
It's like a slower
And
kick
I'm
and
being
bass,
planning
delayed
left
kind of
and
thing.
right. Yes, kind of, but by hand, kind of doing that, but by hand to have more control and let it execute it in the end more my own unique kind of way. But yeah, that would be mainly. So
Quick question about that last few
Yes.
blocks. Seeing as you working with those two arps there, is it something conscious that you think about in the way that, okay, this is the part where I'm going to have an arp, so I'm going to have less like one-shot leads, like the stuff that you have before? just to make like space for it? Is that something that you do consciously, or is that
But
something that just
what
comes
part do you mean? Do
naturally?
you know what part exactly?
So from 81 up until
Yeah.
113, it is
Well,
there's
okay.
many different like one shots that I would call it. Very
Yes,
short
yes.
leads that is going one after the other, and then the arps come in, and it's a lot less of that. Is that something that you do consciously, or is that something that just kind of flows out of you
Honestly, it
with the way that
depends.
you?
Honestly, it depends. Sometimes I have it in mind and I go on purpose on that. And sometimes I'm not so clear and I go more test, error, and I let myself flow and I keep defining it a little bit slowly on the way, you know? But in this case, for example, you can see these are principal elements, lead lines I created, different kind of rhythms, different elements. And then many times the original elements like that, I don't put them like that many times. I rework them. I move new slots because I mix them with new elements. You know, I keep doing that process slowly. I look a lot for a very pro smooth articulation or aggressive
Mm-hmm.
when I want it aggressive, but I mean convincing, really pro and really convincing, no? When you listen it and wow, yeah, fully, I try, you have that feeling of it is very coherent, no? The artistic way of creation about storytelling and everything. It depends. What I have clear is the kind of ascension and progression usually in the tracks. I like a lot to start from a history slow kind of ascension, and I like a lot to reach in my tracks some very peak parts, very emotional, sometimes very aggressive, whatever connotations I like in each track, but very pronounced. And I like a lot to touch the heart of the people when they listen to music. So I try to do whatever I consider the best in order to achieve that effect in the listener in the end. I take a lot into account the person that is gonna listen to music. So I think a lot in the listener, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I love to listen to music, so I put I put the emphasis on that because I like in my case also, and I like it then for the other people. So just kind of thinking about the not only your taste, which is very important. I think it's crucial, but also you have to balance it with that, no, taking a bit into account these kind of things. I think it's interesting. Good. Any more question?
No, let's focus on the break.
Good. So we were in the break. Yeah, I was saying this is doing this gig based thing I have done. It's something like that.
Thrilling adventure through the metallic wonders of the robot carnival. Robot Carnival is an electrifying musical journey that transports listeners to a futuristic realm where technology and creativity collide. This dynamic composition blends pulsating electronic beats with soulful melodies, creating a sonic landscape that mirrors the synergy between man and machine.
So as you see, after the break, we drop there with that new baseline pattern for first time in all the track.
Mm-hmm.
This one, that one, and I go suddenly very mystery and very quiet and mystery. I give that shot. Make those two cents. I melt it. Then with the jumping from block to block. So we achieve that mood with that baseline pattern and that empty break only that vocal with those sounds. I achieve that mood. Then I start to speak a little bit, very subtle, with some rapid, fast elements going on to make some company and interesting environment for the principal element, which will come next in this block. And then, as you see, I will insist 2 blocks on that. This is the main vocal, the speech I made before, and I will insist on that. I will go 1 block more naked, more like that kick and bass and some elements going, not much, because I want to focus especially the attention in the speech together with the ascension of this mood, hypnotic mood that the bassline is creating. Also because I didn't mention, but this kind of stops, it has every bar. And then
Also, it has pitch
yes,
bends, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like the part of the melody is coming specifically from the melody itself, and then I feel like there's also just a pitch bend happening on there.
yeah, look, that's
Oh
it.
yeah, yeah.
But
Okay.
not only the pitch bend, it is also some automations I have the frequency of the filter and the filter envelope and
Okay.
modeling. So those two I play in order to achieve this kind of feeling every 1 bar ending, which is empty. I pronounce, so 1 bar, 1 bar. Sorry, that's 2 bars.
It's 2 bars per thing, yeah.
Yes.
So
So that's 4 bars. So every 4 bars, I make that kind of play game with the bass. Look how it sounds. You see that kind of zoop back, no?
it just opens up a little bit towards it, like it's kind of like breathing towards you, towards the end of the phrase, basically.
Kind of. So that together, that little automation in some couple of parameters in the synthesis, together with the pitch bend, I achieve that kind of mood, together with the rest I'm creating here, right? So then we jump to the next block, and then, as I was saying, I will insist in this element for 2 blocks. We will go a bit more empty here, and then we will keep increasing the tension, especially there. I will be rising, some kick roll in the end, snare roll, a noise, some fast kick loop. I think that's a boom, and also this rising element. Right, so all that together, then I will push very much there, and here I will have a very pronunciated drop. Let's take it from here, for example.
Creativity collide. This dynamic composition blends pulsating electronic beats with soulful melodies, creating a sonic landscape that mirrors the synergy between man and machine. The song unfolds like a vivid carnival of robots, each note representing a different mechanical marvel dancing in rhythmic harmony, celebrating the symbiotic relationship between human and robot.
Right, you see the kind of ascension. So as I was saying, I pushed a lot that block. I make that rising, that very intense pushing, and then I drop and I make that floating. I drop intense there. But then I go even a bit more intense now and more closed loop, more hypnotic with this aggressive kind of lead going on. I keep that flying, and then I prepare to jump here with this new element in the half of the block. I'm incoming the element already slowly, it will drop. It will be happening together with this layering a bit, and then we will let it in the back, those, and we will just be flying with the last one as a escape block, and then we will be ending, right? So
Okay.
let's take it from here. And smoothly I make the ending there.
Yeah.
Right? If you have seen something you want to see in deeper detail, because it's quite the final project, so it's mainly everything in audio, but I have everything in MIDI if you would see wherever, right? But I have mostly everything in audio.
To be honest, when it comes to this kind of thing, I think people are more interested in the overall workflow of something like this. So from what I understand, the way that you work is that you maybe create like a template and it's like a very basic idea of a track that you can then create a whole bunch of synths on, so that you get a whole big amount of synths, and then you can arrange it into the final project, right?
Yes. I
Okay.
create a kick and bass, I create a groove, and then I start to brainstorm. And until I don't achieve 15, 20, 25 leads, whatever, to play with and start the arrangement, the storytelling, I don't go to the arrangement if I don't have that. Also, something I didn't mention and very characteristic and super important according to my concept is that in the brainstorm, this process I explained you, until I don't achieve at least 2 or 3, at least super magic elements, I'm not done. I'm not done with the brainstorm or with the track. For example, these kind of elements for me in this track would be, if I have to put it quick, one would be probably this. Another one would be the vocal work I have done. And one more could be this acid. Could be also that. But those
Yeah, so
all those have
like
possibilities.
main elements, right? Like
All those
elements
have,
that dominate their block, their section, to say.
yes, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Also, the way that you're working, from what I can tell, is that you make a very long recording of a lead, maybe like the length of a block, or maybe even much longer. I don't know. And
Usually
then
one
for
block,
the
yeah.
one, yeah, and then for the one shots, you just chop that up into smaller parts, right?
Yeah, sometimes I flow and I record. I mean, some of them I'm very inspired and the light comes, when you are inspired and you are into that mood. And then I touch nothing because it's so nice. I'm super satisfied, no? But sometimes, yes, I redo because I'm not so happy. And also when you place in the arrangement and you create the storytelling, you have different vision of it. It's very different the way you see and feel one element by itself alone than when you have to bring it in the arrangement and give a story on it and explain something and be interesting and blah 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 and everything. No, it's very different perspective.
Yeah. I guess the way that I'm working with my own productions, it's the complete opposite in that I almost immediately go into an arrangement. So that is one of the first things that I try. Once I have like my first creative ideas out there in the track, say that I make 4 or 5 synths after I make my kick and bass and my groove part. I make 4 or 5 synths. Even the kick and bass and the groove, I don't spend a lot of time on it. I don't like to work on that for 2 hours, like many people do. I just pull up a simple kick and bass, and then later on, if I actually know that the project is going to, become better and become a final project, then I can work for a long time on the kick and bass. But I start out trying to immediately get the arrangement so that all of the elements that I add after that to the track I can adapt them to the arrangement that I already have. But it seems like you're doing it in a complete opposite way, and that you really focus on just the quality of all of the elements and really trying to get that down before you actually start to think about, okay, now that I have all of these elements, now I have all of this audio, or maybe it's still MIDI, I don't know. Once I have all of that, you can then start to think about, okay, how do I actually make this work in the track? Do you ever feel that you get problems where you have a really cool element, but it just never works in the track that you have?
That happens a lot. That's something that every producer has to go through and have that experimentation. That is very common. It's what I was saying. It's different vision, one element by itself, than when you have to bring it into story and into an expression, a real expression, and give coherence and life to that. It's very different. So for me, yeah, it's very important to achieve first that kind of thing, the workflow I explained.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, because when I have that, then for me the magic happens by itself. If I have sounds which make me fly just listening them, which I really feel them, that then goes by itself. In my case, we all have to know our own workflow. What things work better for us, depending what kind of workflow we tend to go. So you have to know to trick yourself in the bad habits you have in order to succeed and achieve better quality and result things.
Yeah. Is there, when you're working on just the sound creation part, is there like a list of sounds that you go through? Like, I need this many leads, I need this many atmospheres, I maybe need one vocal to start with?
I flow on the way. But
Okay.
I take into account a lot to have a diverse palette of elements, as I said, because then I will play with the contrast. It's crucial for me, in my kind of expression, in my kind of sound print. I developed these kind of aspects. This is one of many others, but yeah.
And then you render stuff like very quickly to audio, or is that something that you only do when it's towards the end of the production?
I make the brainstorm. I have all in MIDI in the end. Once I'm happy, let's say, I go to arrangement. I have my work, my sessions. And when I'm more final, then I start to bring everything slowly into audio. Yes.
Okay. Next question, I guess maybe more related to the groove. Is there some interesting things related to the groove? Is there some interesting workflow aspects there? Or is it just like, oh, I need a bunch of samples and I just drop it in and then that's done? Or do you have like a secret workflow kind of thing, I guess, there?
Well, I have very much clear my kind of sounding in the groove that I like. For example, this is my snare completely from scratch, but then I have some other loops. This is also mine. Those, for example, are mostly loops, but then the open hat and the snare is mine. The crash, it's from one of my sounds. Depending, I mix. But something that I could say, for me, important about the groove is I like a groove with a minimum rounded and complete fulfilling. I mean, I don't like a groove with only two hats. And, I like, look, for example, I don't like it like this. I will remove those. Let's compare. So as you see, I mean, well, it was not full groove there. It was here. But imagine my full groove would be like this. Listen. For me, it lags a lot. It's missing a lot for me, So I like
the detail that is missing.
What?
Right? It is more the detail that is missing. Like the main elements of the groove are already there with the three elements that you're showing now. So I feel
Yeah,
like
but
the
it's
other
not
elements.
catching you. It's not catching you. According to my vision, it's not catching you because it's so empty. Me, I like to make it more complete, uh, fulfilling more the band in the spectrum, let's say. Make it more complete, you know? So look quickly the difference A and B. Big difference, right? You can play
Yeah.
more or less about the fulfilling of your groove, depending your taste, etc. But I think there's a coherent minimum and maximum.
No, what I was trying to get at is like maybe it's like the elements that you're deleting are more like layers, more like the background detail thing, and the elements that you're leaving, for the example, were more the forefront thing. But when you hear the elements coming back, you can clearly hear that it's just like extra stuff. It's not like detail layer behind it. It's more groove. It's playing in different parts, right?
Yes, maybe I was more. I wanted to make a quick and practical example, and maybe I was very drastic. But I mean, imagine full groove, and maybe I remove one or two, not four. Yeah, it was very drastic. But imagine I remove one or two, and already would be less than what I tend to go, than what I look for.
Okay. Yeah.
That's explaining my vision and my kind of going with this with the groove. Since you asked about that, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's again a bit of a different workflow than I do because I tend to just import snare, open hat, and closed hat as like main elements, and then everything else that is in my percussive group, in my groove segment, to say it like that, it tends to be more detail sound. So the three elements stay on top, and then depending on what I need, I might have some mid-range percussions. I may have some shaker, maybe some other loops or stuff like that under it. But it's all usually like in the back from it. So the main three elements still kind of come through and have more the focus of the groove, and then the other elements are more in like behind in the groove, to say it like that.
Yes, you give different layerings, different
Yeah, yeah.
lengths, different depth. Sure, yeah, that's interesting.
But for you, it's more you're building up a more kind of, I guess, a complex groove out of not just like layers in that there's clear foreground elements and clear background elements, but it's all together. I guess it feels more like a one cohesive groove made up of multiple elements, as opposed to, okay, here are the three main elements of the groove,
Kind
and
of,
then
yeah.
here is everything else more behind it, to say it like that.
Kind of, yeah. I think so.
Interesting. I think people are interested also probably in your kick and bass, so let's see if we can quickly run through that.
Sure. Look, I have it in MIDI both because I thought it was more interesting for the purpose of the video, so people can see. So I have the kick and the bass, and well, basically, look, about the kick, I like a lot to have a fat kick. There are some tones, some keys in kick that I usually don't use because in relationship together with the key of the bass, in the end, I don't like it so much, relationship, because I like a fat relationship between both of them. So you can see here a little bit the curve I have, the amp I have.
Okay.
I like a lot to give it this kind of curve and push the low end very drastic. Depending on the key I am, I will profile more or less, but that's usually how I go. Usually I give one or two clicks. I don't go too crazy with that. I have done some with three, yeah, but usually with one or two proper ones, I'm good. And then the chain, this is the chain for the kick I have. It comes from kick 2. Then I have this module, this group I have by default prepared. And in the end, I have the oscillos. So it looks like this. And I like a lot first to EQ with the Pro Q3. Then after that, usually I place EQ3 from Ableton Native, and I like to to look for a new color, and usually I achieve a new better color. If I don't achieve it, I just turn it off. In this case, it worked as usually. After that, I just put some secure ending for the tail of the kick, so it's never collapsing too much with the next bass note. And I have some bass after my chain. When I arrive here in this device, I just looks. This comes like this. I just look for 4 positions. I compare rapidly. A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. I keep playing between them, and the one which has bigger low end, I go for that. So I make like that, like that, like that, and like that.
Okay.
Right? This
Yeah.
was like this. And then, no, this is just for automating. I love the arrangement, and I compress always some gate reduction. That I do it in almost every element. For sure, in all the leads, I do it, for sure. In the groove, mostly in all the elements, yes, mostly in all the elements. But you see a very basic chain. Many times I end up putting more things. This case is more simple. Then about the bass, it comes from Mana, as I said. It's from, whoa, yeah, it's from one of, no, this is not from my bank. No, this is from another preset, I think, but it has very much the sound. No, yeah, it's from my bank, yeah. This waveform, Sao Luna, it's one I have done with a software. You have many different ones, but it's a software to creating waveforms in single cycle, in whatever. You can do also, you can do that also with Serum, but with some softwares, there's some more options. Anyway, this kind of saw I achieved. It works easily to sound. It gets easily to sound the way I like for the bass. Look, rapidly, for me, the bass, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 13 knobs. These 13 parameters for me are the crucial ones and the ones I use for the bass. But
Okay.
basically, if I put it more short, would be this one, cutoff. So envelope filter, cutoff filter, and these 4 knobs from the filter amp, filter envelope, and amp envelope.
Yeah.
With that is the most crucial parameters that I achieve my sound. Look, I will play the bass in solo and a little bit with the kick. This is something I didn't mention. I use a span and I use it with my own settings. Not very common. I use it very rapid behavior, but because I like to see the impulses, many information which you can only see this way, I'm just used and I like this way. Then you
So
see,
essentially, it allows you to see both the spectrum of the kick and the bass when they're playing, because the kick goes away very quickly.
yeah, if I put
right?
it this way, I can even start to see a little bit the timing of the sweep of the kick, which goes from high to low. You know, even that. I mean, yeah, very faster behavior. So the kick, I go here, and the bass, I go basically here. Sometimes the first harmonic, I go a little bit 1 to the bass plus to have more sub, but basically that's the mix I have. That's it. That's it. Then in the bass, the next thing I go about the chain, it comes from Ana, and then I have the volume shaper. You have some other VSTs. I use this one. It's cutting the first note of the bass up to, you will see here the split frequency, up to 125. Usually here I go from 100 to 150, depending on the note relationship
So
I have, the
the
tone. But
first harmonic or the first and second harmonic, you're essentially cutting out there.
Usually,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Usually, yes, depending the tone of the kick of the bass, the mood of the track I like, whatever flow I keep going, but mostly that range is the most used.
And what is the quickly the crossover steepness of this filter? Oh, it's very low. It's just 6 dB. Okay.
6 dB.
Yeah.
Yeah, slope is 6 dB. 6 dB, split frequency 125 hertz in this
Okay.
case. And the track is A sharp. It's quite high key. So after that, I have some EQ, not very drastic this time. Then I have the position for the face. I look what I said. In this case, I just inverted. After that, I go many times, not always, but many times, most of the times, I end up with a multiband compressor native from Ableton, and I have my own setting, which I tweak depending on the track, blah, blah. But usually like this. And I look especially for a new color and position after the chain, which will come in here and will go out, compress a little bit, some peaks. Like 1 dB, gain reduction, more or less. And the oscillos in the end to see. This is basically how I go. As I said, I like to go the most simple possible. Meanwhile, I keep achieving what I want, result I want,
Yeah.
you know?
I guess the conclusion here is on the baseline, there's very little phase shift happening. It's not like you see a lot of producers that go maybe 3-4 multiband plugins in a row to get the tonality that they're after, to get the more rubbery texture that they're after. A question that I have here is, do you do anything in particular to make sure that you don't get any post-stringing from one bass note into the next bass note, or from one bass note into the next
You mean overlapping?
kick drum? Yeah, the overlapping part. Because I can see it
overlapping.
in the oscilloscope, it is looking very clean, in the sense
Yes.
that the bass plays and then it stops. But I don't see, you are doing a lot, enough phase shift, I guess, to get maybe those kind of problems. You know what I mean?
Very good question. Very good question. You know why it's going like that? Because the way I have set the synthesis with especially those parameters I said, in the end, I only need to play with the length in the MIDI note of the pattern.
Oh yeah, yeah. So you just make the pattern, I get the MIDI note shorter to compensate for any post stringing that may happen. So that if the note becomes longer because of the phase shift, you just make the note shorter again, so that it exactly lines up with the length that you want.
Yes, I let the length of the note until I see in the oscillos it's proper. Imagine I turn off that. We will listen this more clearly. Look.
Yeah, it's exactly just that part, and then if you make it longer, it just goes longer, of course.
You see, it's not easy with all the scenes to achieve this. It's sometimes very tricky to achieve this very proper control about the overlapping, about the ending and beginning of the notes. Also, when you
Yeah.
apply chain and more chain, you will have re-timbering and stuff like that. And maybe in the end, that's another story. But in the end, we read to audio and you keep polishing more things, obviously. But just some things along the way of the process, right?
Yeah. I mean, as long as you don't do a lot of phase shift like you are doing, this method works. But if you do maybe say 4 multibands, then it becomes a problem, because then you have to make the note so short that you get harmonics being cut off too early, right?
It could be.
You still want the mid-range to be long enough for the sound to sound good.
It
And that
could be, yes.
doesn't really happen.
Yeah. You need to be aware and careful about that.
Okay, so that is an interesting look into one of your projects. Is there anything else that you want to say, or if there is anything that you want to promote, now is the time to do so.
That's it. I mean, any interest about my music work in any sense, you have my social media. You can check my Instagram, Facebook, also my YouTube channel. I'm also involved in education. I'm teacher in Psytrance Institute. There's also a YouTube channel. I'm doing a lot of song banks, usually 2 or 3 every year. And anyway, it was very nice to do the video with you, and we can think about something interesting still for the audience now for our next time.
So that's it for today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you did by leaving a like, and make sure that you're subscribed. Also, if you want to see more videos with Lunatica, you can suggest topics in the comments down below. Another way to support the channel is by watching some more of my content, so I'll put up 2 videos up on the screen right now for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.